Hey with everybody. I'm very happy to be able to introduce Des Latham. I don't really think Des actually needs any introduction. I mean, Des, you are very much a part of AIP, and you've done an incredible amount of work in terms of our US project. And in fact, been doing a lot of workshops with us post the US trip. And of course, you were there as well. But you are, a seasoned journalist, a podcaster, a trainer, CEO of Frey Intermedia. I mean, I could go on and on. But to you, so that we can get the program going. We will be together then basically from 9 now to 11 o'clock. So over to you, Des.
Thanks. I see a whole bunch of people left as soon as you introduced me. So that's a really unfortunate state of events. Perhaps it was because it's just past 9 and power failures. Peter's still there. Thank you, Peter. Shirley, nice to see you. Who else is online? Magati, Larato, Vanzili, and Michael. Of course, Valent. We were chatting before. Nice to see everyone on board. That's so I'm just going to kick off and go. You're recording this, so people fall off or get onto this show. It's not the end of the world. To go over some of the perspective of what we're going to do very quickly. And when we first chatted about this, Kate and I were talking about the use of artificial intelligence, or to be more specific, large language models, LLMs, which maybe explain what's going on with AI more effectively. And I built this whole really extensive program, and Kate was very specific about that we're going to use it practically to generate something. But to get to practical, we really need to understand what this thing is. It's not a robot, and it's getting close to, I think, therefore I am kind of logic, where it's taken human knowledge through millions and millions of computers connecting and uploading information, and the stored information produces logic, and logic produces thought, and thought produces outcomes. And so that's the essence of what has happened with what AI is, really. So if you're confused about what it is it a robot going to take my job? Is it one of those things building a Toyota at the factory? It's something like that, but it's much, much bigger. So the use of thoughts that we all have as human beings, the way we think is in language. It puts things in our minds. It's not a vapor. Smells, we put names to. Scenes, we put thoughts to. Reactions and emotions, we put responses to, and so on. So that's in essence what large language models do. They're taking the languages of the world and push them and put them into, I think, Muteri, I think your mic is on. Thanks. And so they've combined all these computers and the thoughts behind them to then give us an assistant that we can use, a skilled assistant that is online. Unfortunately, you can't download this assistant and have it with you. So that's the first thing to say, is that you need internet to run the assistant. I've been working in AI for 3 years now, on and off. I worked with the Canadians. The Canadian government has got a huge process going on in Africa, which I must be honest with you, for the first 2 years, I was kind of confused about what AI was. And so it's helped me a lot working with agencies. And what they've done in Africa, for example, is build laboratories to localize data and AI use in data and agriculture, for example, and climate and a few other things. So I began to understand more effectively last year what was going on. And then this year, it was really exciting when the projects that we've seen, large language models, came out. So that's just the background. So I need to give you that preamble. I'm not going to blurb in your ear too much, but you need to understand what this thing is. And it's a threat and it's an opportunity. So it's a threat to translators, to editors, to writers, to journalists, but it's also an opportunity to all of those. And the big thing here is that because we are data limited, the useful thing about AI, the way it's working in Africa, is that it's text-based. So you need a certain speed computer if you're starting other things with it, and I'll explain as we go. So if you're doing images, for example, you do need a more modern computer. You can't do it with an old computer. It has demands on the machine. Hi, Motusi, can you hear me? I think there's a mic on there. Hi, Lobelo, and a nice. Greetings. If you wouldn't mind muting the mics if you're online, just so that we can get through this ASAP and get to the crux of the matter, so to speak, which is us working on chat. So, hi, Ananas, could you turn your mic off, please? Thanks. So,
yeah, see it works. Okay.
Yes, I'm so sorry. It seems that you've been muted. Yeah.
oh, I must have muted myself, or someone else muted me by mistake. So, large language models have been, I don't know if where you cut me or where I was cut off from, but the large language models that we have are a combination of human intelligence put together in a place and then accessed by a thing that looks like a single line text. So just before we start, who hasn't used anything like ChatGPT on this call? Just put your hand up if you can do it on the Zoom call. Has anyone not used it yet? I know Shirley has. I know Peter has. I presume Peter, the last we spoke, you've been using it. I know Michael probably used it. Valent, I hope. Kate has. So the number of us have been using this. So we understand basically what's going on here with this, the essence of chat and GPT. But the important thing is that this isn't a ChatGPT training session, but I want to introduce you to a couple of other tools which you need to use. One definitely is Bard, B-A-R-D. I'm going to put it in the chat here. So it's bard.google.com. And Bard is ChatGPT for Google. So what I've been doing with these two is I've been trading them off against each other. And as we go through the session, you'll see that ChatGPT is very good in terms of information gathering. Bard's a little bit better with contemporary information. ChatGPT, since I last worked with AIP, has changed its system. It's now no longer, it stops in 2022. When we last trained, it had a termination date of September 2020. Now it's 2022, January. So it's very, very fast, folks, on this call. This thing is moving fast. It's the fastest moving thing I've seen since the launch of the internet, and it's about 10 times quicker what's happening to us. So we have to really start using this now and in all our operations. You can use it on a phone and you can use it on a laptop. So, but there are, as we go through the session, I'm just going to share my screen and do the presentation with you. There are things that you need to keep in mind as we go. Is that still working properly, Kate and Valent? Still okay. Okay. We did a test before, but you know how it goes. We do tests and then it fails. So
All good.
Okay, thank you. So let me just move this around a bit. Just getting something out of the way on my screen. I mean, the thing here is that the rule one is we need to be specific about what you're doing with it. And I'm going to go through some of the patterns. Large language models have patterns of thought, like you and I have patterns. You know, when you get yourself into a conversation with someone at a place, you pattern, you start assigning thought processes to where you are. Now we're on a training session, so you're assigning your thought process to being in a training session. If you go and you drive a car, your pattern of thought, our pattern of intelligence, I thought goes into now we are busy with this, and your mechanical skills and so on are applied to that. Each time we move to a place, there's a pattern, and I'm going to show you an AI, their patterns of how you need to start using those patterns to make it do stuff for you more effectively. So the rule number one is be specific about what you want. You can't ask it vague questions. It gives you vanilla, neutral responses. You probably, those who've played with it have seen that. You know, tell me about the Russian-Ukrainian war, and it gives you, it gives you 5 or 6 or 8 paragraphs of very vague stuff about what's happening. So you need to be specific. Rule number 2, you need to give it lots of detail. So the more you give these things in terms of information about what you want, the more it gives you back. And that's the problem, because a lot of people enter into using these tools without knowing fully what it is that they want back from it. So they're kind of guessing. So we'll do a little bit of practice around that. And the rule number 3 is you use verbs. download, create, analyze, those kind of things. Share, find. So it's basically, it's almost like an intern. So the way that you get trained to use this, and I'm certified now in AI prompt engineering, for example, is through Vanderbilt University, is to ensure that you're always giving enough detail like your intern, because your intern really wants to help you. But your intern also makes mistakes, and AI makes mistakes. It's called hallucinating. So it begins to hallucinate because it wants to make you so happy. It starts thumb-sucking things. And what it's doing is actually drawing from a vast range of sources historically that's been fed into it to find the little bits that relate to what you're asking, the patterns that you're asking. So it very seldom will say no. If you say to it, write me a story about pedophilia, a child, it'll say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or if you say to it, write a story about slitting someone's throat, it'll say, no, I'm not going to do that. So it has rules built into it about how far it can go when it comes to ethic. And this is the scary thing, is it actually has ethics built into it. So you can bypass that with some, subtlety, but there's a limit. So when you ask it to do things, it won't, how do I rob a bank? Explain to me. It's going to say, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to do that. That's an illegal act. So there are limits to this. So the capability of taking ideas and then prototyping that through large language models is the big thing. So before coming online this morning, I was given a request at the weekend to do a proposal for videography. That would normally take me about 3 or 4 hours. It took me about 15 minutes. At about 7:30, I started doing it and finished it by 8:15, everything, the whole proposal for a corporate video shoot. And that takes me a while. And so we'll do a little bit of that in this session as well before 11, how to get it to build you actual numbers based on something you give it. But it's task driven. So you need to say to it, generate or create a proposal or create a budget for me from the following. And then the detail about the following was a list of things. So the list is I'll show you in chat in a minute when we get to some of the things we're going to do practically. But I'd say this is the fee, and I'm going to show you some confidential information. So I appreciate if you don't necessarily copy everything I'm going to show you, but you'll see what I'm saying here in terms of business logic and how you can do things. So it's task driven. 2 is context. You need to explain things to it. So, and patterns you'll see is called the persona pattern. We'll get to it in a minute. You tell it to take on a persona. You are now the accountant. That's what you say to ChatGPT. Generate a proposal, blah, blah, blah. The audience is. So you need to tell it all that stuff. It's not a blank slate. It comes from a place. It's a person of many people, if you like. So you need to say to it, now, intern person, I need a proposal for this client. They are in this area. This is how much we charge per hour. This is what you need to do. This is how many people we're going to use. This is the deadline. That's the outcome. Do it. And the little intern that you've just given the task to and the context about produces material based on seconds. So you get it back quickly. So when you write these prompts, and I'm going to show you in a second, we'll go through this. You need to do it in clear language. It's mostly English. You can try in Zulu. There is a capacity in isiZulu, but it's not very good because the majority of stuff we're talking about here has been done in English. They've been fed English. Ironically, one of the curious things coming towards us on vocabulary and this thing about language is that the countries that are more dictatorial and have a tighter control over their people are finding it very difficult to move into AI. They are going to get left behind because AI is a free model. It has ideas. If you start filtering ideas based on what you can or can't say about the Communist Party, what you can't say about the dictator A or B, or politician X or Y, you are restricting the capacity of this object to think. And in the same way as a human, if you and I say to each other, we're in a democracy, you're not allowed to write that because the political party X or Y doesn't like it. You're not allowed to think it. You know how that's dumbing down. And so you need to describe things based on output. So here we go. Prompting. We're going to get to the thing of downloading and so on. But before we get to downloading this and using it, I want you to start thinking about how you're going to work with this. So prompting, sorry, Reverend, I think your mic is on. And Samsung SM8032F is also on, I think. If you wouldn't mind. Samsung, I think there's a noise. SM8032F. There, thank you. So what you say to it is, right, in the prompt area, you say, I want you to act as a life coach. Please summarize this document. Simplify the core principles in a way a child will understand, or a student at high school, you can say. Also, give me a list of actionable steps I can take to implement these principles in my daily routine. So you can see that's kind of broad, but you see there's a specific idea here. I've asked you to act as something. In this case, it's a life coach. The prompt is going to give you AI, or ChatGPT is going to give you a whole bunch of different things based on this. If you just said, here's a document, tell me what I should do about it, it's going to throw its hands in there and go, what are you asking me? If you say, summarize this first, produce points, what are the core key points? Tell me and explain this back to me in the way that's simple, but you give them a specific idea of audience. So you can say, as a teenager, a young student, a person who is not, or a postgraduate student in whatever subject, you can see you start giving it the audience, what level you're going to do it. Also, give me a list of actionable steps. So I want you to list things that I can do in going forward from here. And we'll look at this in journalism as well. So the exciting thing there is that's the pattern prompt for persona. And we're going to get it in a second, but you can see there's something starting to happen here that's not just going to Google and typing, tell me about A or B. You're now forming a relationship with this thing, and it remembers you. So each time you use chat, it creates a list of your conversations on the left-hand side. You're going to at times have to tell it to remember, to save, because at times when you're doing things with it, it won't actually save everything. It'll remember everything, but it won't save everything. So you have to tell it to do certain things as you go along with it. And secondly, you need to also create a different chat for each different subject you're talking. You can't keep using the same line, just talking about different things, because it uses logic in the discussion that you're having with it. Now it's thinking like a life coach in that part of that prompt that you've used. So you talk everything about a life coach or what's going on. When you want to talk about, now write me a story based on the following facts I'm going to give you, you start a new chat. There's a whole new line. Then it thinks it's a whole new thing happening. If you want to go back to the conversation about life coach, you just look at the left and you go back and you go. So you always making it form and understanding it's in a relationship with you, which is the scary thing, because it's just a computer. But if you think of it as a computer that's stored the entire or most of human knowledge in it, and you've got access to it now, and it can think about things and give you advice in the future, that's the potency of this thing. And also the scary part about it, because you can imagine where this is going to go. The pattern that we use a lot is question refinement. So you say, okay, I've given you a bunch of things. I want you to do this, but you suggest to me, chat, what questions I should ask you. So you actually ask it to ask you questions. So you say, here's a proposal, ask me questions about it. Right? Then it says, what do you want to do with it? Who's it for? What is the deadline? It builds a whole list. So one of the interesting things we found is that you can refine your use of ChatGPT by asking it to ask you. So it's the question refinement pattern. It's a really potent thing with it. Then you can say to it, okay, in the future, ask me, just ask me questions. And that's what in my chat, for example, when I say something to it, it always asks me questions now because I've been talking to it for a long time. I say, it says, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. What else do you want to use with this? Whereas if you use chat for the first time, it won't necessarily do that. So when you start forming a conversation with someone, guess what? It's like a human being in a relationship. You're saying, can I do this? And it's tell me what more I could do. Ask me some questions about this. So you can start seeing how that refines things substantially. Then the other thing, the third pattern. So we've got persona, we've got a question pattern, and we've got the alternative approach. And this is a really good one, because you and I have a way of doing things, and we set in our ways perhaps, or we have certain ways of doing things. But you say, okay, rewrite the story. Give me alternative ways to write the story. You ask it to write it for you in alternative ways. Give me 5 alternatives. Give me 3 alternatives. So when I'm working with chat, I'm always asking it to do the following. I say, I'd like a headline for my blog. Give me 3 options. I don't say, give me a headline. And that's the alternative approaches. Or I've got this way that I'm applying myself to my life coach experience, whatever it may be. Suggest alternative ways to do this. And again, because it's plugged into the world of thoughts, it starts telling you stuff you didn't think about. So it's cognitive bias we're talking about here. So when we have perception about what we think is right, we tend to go down that road constantly and not think in an alternative way. So what you can also tell it to do, and you get a copy of this presentation. So if you go back, you can actually go through this, go to chat and go through these different patterns and fiddle around with them yourself. But option to compare and contrast the pros and cons. So you'll say to it, okay, I want to study music. Give me the pros and cons of studying music in Africa. And I would like to be a performer. What are the pros and cons of being a performer? And it'll give you lists of positive and negative. Then you can say to it, okay, in the future, prompt me for various approaches, but we don't have to worry too much about that. But you can start seeing you're asking to ask questions, you're asking to give you alternatives. You're not just asking to do something. The cognitive verifier is that when you ask it to do something, you can give it rules. You say, hey, I want you to analyze these stories based on the rules of climate change and the following thing, or race relations or gender rights. You've got to follow the rules. Here are the following rules. Follow these rules when you answer this. The one I find very useful. You say to it, a good example is, tell me more about the history of Russia and Ukraine, for example, and it'll give this. And then you say to it, where did you get that information from? Whenever you generate an answer to my questions, explain your reasons and your assumptions. And you'll start seeing, it says, according to, it starts becoming sourcing material, basically. It says, according to the following, but it won't necessarily source the material unless you tell it to. So then, as journalists, it becomes very important to do that, because then you can start fact-checking quite quickly if you do the reflection pattern. What I do with reflection pattern a lot is I select the text that it's generated from ChatGPT and I put it in BARD. And I say, what do you think of this? Tell me more about that. Are there any alternatives, any pros and cons, any weaknesses? What do you think about that? And then it'll tell you. And then, so you bounce, it's like having 2 interns that are competing for your attention. Quite useful, right? Okay, then moving to translations, which we're going to look at as well in a minute, practically. So you say to it, I want you to act as an English translator and a spelling and grammar improver. I use South African English spelling. By the way, when you use it the first time and you tell it that, from then on, it starts treating you like that. If you want an American spelling, you're going to tell it after that. By the way, now I'd like you to use American spelling. Or by the way, I would like you to think as a translator in isiZulu, whatever it is, and then it'll change based on that and the outcomes. So you could say, translate this, answer and correct this, and make it an improved version of my text in English. The danger there is it starts getting quite flowery, because it's got the entire...
Lekker gesien, niemand anders nie, nee.
Marinda? Okay. So it's got the entire kind of a lexicon of English in its head. It's got the entire works of Shakespeare, everything, blah, blah. So it tends to kind of overdo it a bit. When you're translating, you say, translate this exactly. You can also say, okay, I've written something. I want you to replace my simple English and my basic English with a higher AO level or post-grad English level words and sentences that are more beautiful and elegant. Upper level English words and sentences. And then it writes you this really flowery script. Or French. I want you to translate this English text into French, or isiZulu, isiXhosa. The level of language should reflect the tone of the English. So in other words, you're saying to it, I want you to translate this as is. It reflects the exact thing. So you can't be too, you can't be creative. translate this exactly. The reader of this text in French should be an average high school educated native speaker. So you're saying to reflect what I'm saying to you in the same tone, but I want you to translate this properly based on the following outcomes. The other thing about prompting is that we try and avoid negatives. You don't say, don't do this and don't do that to ChatGPT, like a person. Preferably people respond to positives. You say, convert this text into words and sentences, rather than say, don't write this for someone who's too young. And title generators, which we're going to get to, please generate 5 different titles for this piece. Keep the titles short, under 20 words, in other words, headline, and ensure meaning is retained. So, hey, here's the persona pattern. Hey, ChatGPT, I want to learn about a topic. Or you can say, I want you to act as an advertiser. Now create an advert for this brand, blah, blah, blah. It's 30 seconds. It's radio, it's television. I'd like you to rewrite this script for an advert that I want to produce images for. Or I'll provide you with an argument or opinion. Or simulated job interview. People are using job interviews a lot. They're testing, ChatGPT tests them for job interviews. There are whole apps now, AI apps that can train you for job interviews based on different jobs. So if you go online and look, you'll see. So most of these guys now demand you pay something. It's not free anymore, but it's there. Idea generation, problem solving, learning, and research. So I'm going to get out of this presentation now, and we're going to do a little bit of practical. So first, there's a lot of people on this call. It's increased since I last looked. And nice to have everyone on board. That's just a broad outline. Are there any questions up to now?
Yeah,
Marina?
sorry. We said initially that there'll be probably about 12, but you are lucky you got double. Okay, cool.
Okay, good. Any questions up to now? So I've just spoken, so sorry about that. Because I needed to paint pictures here for our thinking processes, and also to spark some follow-up ideas, because you're going to start attacking this beast now, or at least having a look at me attacking and taking notes. If you don't, if you can't simultaneously go online, which is going to be a little bit difficult for all of us. So I know Kate will make this training available, this video. So if you need to go back and redo something or have a look at it, plus the presentation does help a little bit. But the use of these tools is very practically aligned. Just wondering whether you're going to cover ChatGPT's custom instructions feature. I mean, one of the things about ChatGPT 4, which I'm a user of, is that as you go, I'm doing this as a very basic introduction, Michael, and the answer is no. I've been asked to do a very basic introduction here. It's a 2-hour session. So the custom instructions is exactly what I've been at. It's called the patterns, which are exactly what you're referring to. So the list of things that you build and tell it to do based on the app itself, which we get to now, forms the basis of a custom instruction. With the following, do the following. But you've got to understand that it's based on patterns. So that's really why I think it's important to stress the pattern-based thinking of this beast, because that's how it functions. I mean, I'm sure at the end of the session, if you want to add, and people are interested in the specific things that I've missed, Michael, be my guest. I'm just going to get through the initial introduction part of this. Any other questions? So I'm just going to go to chat, because it appears that's what we're talking about. So I think the big thing to do is to put this into the chat of the call and for people to be able to access it. chat.openai.ai.com. You need to go there and create yourself a login, and you need an email. So it's going to ask you for email address, and it's going to confirm your email, and then you register on chat. So if you don't do that now, Kate, what's your thought? There's a lot of people. If we start logging everyone on now, we're at 9:30 already. It's going to take us 15 minutes to do a large group like this to make sure everyone's on.
So I'm happy for you to kind of give it. Do you think that then we should just talk about what it can do and people kind of log on if they can? Well, you give me a
Yes.
sense of what you want to do.
Yeah, I'd rather do that. If we have 8 or so, that's a bit easier. But when there's, I think 1, 2, 3,
We
1,
have
2, 3,
25.
4. Yeah, and that's good. I mean, I'm so pleased to see so many people interested in this. What we can do is, while we're going through, folks, just go to, there's the link, go to the link, open it up, register to use it. If you're already registered to use it, that's great. So as I go through this process, I'm going to do it at a fair pace. I'm not going to do it too quickly here. Only to give those folks who are still logging on or trying to some time to fiddle with that. But what I'm concerned about is that most people are on phones on the call, and you may have a problem where you're trying to listen and interact with this presentation while you're trying to log on to your phone at the same time. So it may not work out. So with that said, I'm just going to go straight into ChatGPT and share my screen, and then we'll talk. I'll talk with you as we go. See if I can open that up from here. So there we go. So now I'm sharing chat. So let me go. So what it looks like this, basically, it's just a window. I'm just going to move some stuff around here on my screen, folks. It's just a window, and it looks like Google. You can see this message at the bottom. You can see my mouse moving around here. So there's new chat. So when you come to new chat, you're going to have these two things at the top here. So chat GPT or GPT 3.5 and chat 4. I'm a chat 4 user because I use it all the time professionally. But you'll have chat 3.5, which is almost as good as chat GPT 4. There's just a couple of things missing. One is that it doesn't give you as many answers and has a restriction on time. And by afternoon, most of America is online using this thing. So you start getting put at the back of the queue. So if you're using chat a lot, use it in the morning, like all other systems that are cloud-based and general use globally, like this beast is. Use it in the morning because most of America is asleep. And then you're just competing with Americans. I mean, with Europeans and Africans in our time zone. Later, after, say, 1:32, 2 p.m., everyone wakes up in the west of us. And they start using ChatGPT, and then if you haven't paid for it, you get put at the back of the queue. So that's my advice to you: is it can get a bit frustrating by late afternoon, early evening, because you've been told, I can't do this at the moment by chat. So with that warning, so here we have a prompt. So I can say to it, I am a South African journalist working in Johannesburg and need an idea about a new computer. I use Macs, but I would like to use something else. My budget is 6,000 Rand. Please make some suggestions for a purchase. See what it says. Okay, so this is the basic, hello, intern, go and find out X, right? That's what I'm doing here. Budget of 6, the Mac. Macs on for the design, Windows, so it gives me options. Can you see there? Dell, Inspiration, HP, Pavilion. Then it gives me a list of that. I'm saying, what are the, if you were thinking like a computer, thinking like an editor of an online news agency, which of these machines would you suggest is the best? Okay. There's your intern. Go and find out. Will it answer? It's going to give me some nefarious answer to question or none at all. You see, it took her longer to respond, because this is quite a difficult question to answer, isn't it? As an editor of an online news agency, you want a laptop provides balance. Dell Inspiron series. Okay, so it's picked one. Okay, why did you think that is the best? Okay, I'm asking. Remember, I said you've got to qualify the questions. Reliability, variety. I'm learning here, right? I'm learning as a person interacting with an intelligent machine about the subject that I'd like to pursue with more detail. What I cannot ask is, where do I buy that in South Africa? Because then it says to me, Dell website, retail stores. But it's not going to say, it's got a list of connection DNY. It won't say, go now to your nearest. I know you're sitting in Craighall Park, Johannesburg. Go to Sandton, blah, blah, blah. So it gives you kind of broad responses that you could get from Google. All right. So that's one of the ways in which we can use a chat vehicle. So I go to a new chat because I want to ask it something else. Would anyone like to suggest what we should ask as journalists today on a broad range front? Does anyone have any suggestions for a question that they think is relevant for us sitting here together for AIP? I've got a couple, but I'm quite happy to hear of anyone. Anyone good one? Hi, Mahmoud. Nice to see you.
So Des, I mean, the thing which I like doing is to kind of write an article and then ask ChatGPT to polish it, if I can put it that way, and to come up with some, a great title, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's, but I mean, that's using it at a very basic level. But I have to say that's generally what I do with it, and I have to say it does do a fantastic job. Also shortening things, like if I have quite a long article and I'm like, oh gosh, can you help me kind of summarize it? Yeah.
Great. Okay, so ChatGPT has a limit of 10,000 characters, 2,000 words off roughly. Unless you go for the paid for version, then it has a limited number of times you can use it a day. So for those who are going to use it for free to do what Kate is suggesting, which we're going to do now, if we want to jump straight in, let's do that then and go straight to a piece of content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select behind the scenes here, I'm selecting a 4,500 word. I'm not going to be able to put all in there. A script that I've got. So I'm going to say, what I want to do is I want to convert that script to a blog that I'm going to upload. So I'm going to take my script that I've written, as Kate has said, with a piece that you've done, and I wanted to reversion it to do something else. And we'll do a few things with it as I go along. So there you can all see the chat again. Hi, chat. I always say hello because we brought up properly. I would like you to edit this script for a podcast. It has a headline and details about 3 different events. However, what from this script would you think are the main points for a listener based in South Africa? Taking the script. So I'm giving it a processor. Can you see? You don't just give it a line. You now got to think. I'm talking to my intern. So take the script, analyze the script, and produce a 450-word summary of the main points in a blog style format for an audience that is well educated. Paste. Go. Okay. So I pasted in about 4,000 words, the battle of my podcast that I do on South African history. So 450 words, quite a bit. So now it's laying it out like a blog. Okay. Can you see? It's not doing this as it would do for me if I was going to do a story for a website, and we'll get to that in a minute. So it's doing a blog format. It's giving you the main points. Can you see it's chronological? And I'm not entirely happy with what it's done. So as a journalist, or as a thinking person, you just don't sign it up and then copy and paste what it's doing and automatically just loaded somewhere. I'm reading it now. So I'm doing I'm the editor. It's been rewritten. So I'm now the sub-editor, stroke editor. Episode. I'm looking at the tone first. Delves into pivotal moments in history. Yeah, that's basically what I said. The year is 1838. Grand Army of Natal crossed Tugela River, fighting at Pandis and Zangakona. Blah, blah, blah. Those are right names. So you see, you check through Zulu strategy. All right, but where is Mzilikazi? There was a story at the end. So it's missed something. So I'm going to say to it, I see you've missed the bit at the end about Mzilikazi and the Ama Ndebele. Please add that in, add those details in as well. So there we go. So it's redoing it. Hopefully it's, and by the way, if you read carefully, it's changing this slightly. So the text it's doing is changing. So what I'm going to do to it now, because each time it does something for you, it's going to do it differently, slightly. So I'm like, oh, all right, it's got cuts in Mandi Valley, put it at the end. Okay, then I'm going to say to it, without, that's great. Don't change what you've generated, but add a conclusion that concentrates on Mzilikazi in Bulawayo. Oh, and the Rosvi. He ended up banging up against the Rosvi. So, okay. So I know, hold on a second, what am I doing here? So I've said to it, I don't want you to change anything more. So I want you to just look at the end of that. So stay tuned. Okay. So now it's generated the conclusion. It's missed that piece. So like a journalist, like something you've got, you're looking and that's not quite complete. I need you to add the bit I had at the end there. Can you see that Chat GPT missed part of the equation that I want as a thinking person? So this is the part at the beginning of the session where I said to you, as journalists, it's a threat and an opportunity. The threat is it can do this. Goodbye job. No, it can do this, but it misses things. It doesn't get the tone quite right. Even if you promote it and prompt it properly with all the skill in the world, it still needs someone interacting with it to focus it a little bit. So I've seen it missed out the point I ended off the podcast with a look at Mzilikazi and the Rosvi and him arriving in Bulawayo in 1840, the period. I wanted to do something about it. So it's done this. So I'm still not entirely happy. I'll say, that's great. Remember, it's thinking chronologically with you. It's sitting with you. That's great. Please summarize the conclusion, making it, limiting it to 150 words. So it goes back to, it doesn't go back to the start of this whole thing. It knows that I'm asking it about the last bit that it did, conclusion, so then it produces that. And then I can copy and paste. So I go to the first one it wrote, which was kind of happy. I'm doing this fast, so there'll be parts of it I'll have to go through it a little, take more time, but you can see what we're doing here. So I copy it. There's a little board and these three little icons. Copy it. I like it. So I can give feedback to it to improve it. So copy it there. I'm not going to take my conclusion. I'm just going to show you. Take it across to, let me take it to Word. I'll show you, I'll share the screen now with you. Where, there it is. Right. Okay. Can you see that? So there's my little wrap for my blog. I didn't have to write or rewrite this. It would take me about 45 minutes. It's taken us a few minutes to do this. But hold on, you'll say, what are these things here? Can you see these things? So the thing we have to do with that is find and replace. So either you can go through and delete each one, which, or you can use the find and replace. So Find next. Find that. Place with nothing.
Try the edit function, Des. Edit find
No,
under your home
there we
tab.
go. Okay. Yeah, find and replace. I'm trying to replace all of them. So I'll just do the, where's my hash? 2 hash. And then replace all. You can see there on the left. Oh, for some reason, not doing it all. Oh, it's 2 stars, of course. I'm going blind here. Find and replace all. There we go. So it took out the hash which was in there, 2 hashes plus the 2 stars. So there, so all the automatic code that it puts into the document, I just automatically remove. Copy this document, I suppose. And having done the obviously the test for spelling, if you want to do it in Word, and then load it into wherever. In my case, it's the blog. So that's the quick option when it comes to just a piece of material. But if we can go back to the prompt there, I'm still in the same conversation with it. Okay, so I want to do other stuff with the story. So I'm going to say to it, okay, now generate, remember verb, generate 3 different blog headlines from this text. Now, is it going to do the Mzilikazi text? Can you see it's doing beyond? It's now thinking. Then I'm going to say to it, okay, sorry, my fault. Generate 3 different blog headlines from all the text I shared with you, focusing on the main part of the story was the Battle of the Tugela. So there's 3 little funky headlines. I used one of them, by the way, in my blog yesterday that I produced. I'll show you to here. Anyway, so you can see Tugela Showdown, unveiling South Africa's forgotten battle. That's quite a nice one. Tugela's Fury, the battle that shaped South African history. Tugela's legacy, how a river altered South Africa's fate. Okay, that's not quite true. It was significant, but it didn't alter the fate. But anyway, so you can see you're getting material from it that that makes some sense, and that you as a journalist are analyzing. So there are the headlines there. Sorry, I know I wasn't sharing them, but you can see there's headlines now. The 3 headlines here, and I said to it, okay, sorry, my fault, generate 3 different blog. When I asked it to generate 3 different blog headlines, it went automatically to the flow of thought we are having together, to the last thing I asked it to do, which was the conclusion, remember? So you have to then stipulate and say, no, my fault, go back to all the text. And then it realizes, oh, okay, then regenerate it, like you're briefing an intern. So the more detail, the more information you give it that's accurate, the better. So hold on a second. Translate this. Translate headline number 1. Yeah, I like that. It's the most kind of conservative. It's probably the most accurate. Headline 1. Sorry. Into, you see, Zulu. Okay, so are there any first language Zulu speakers on the call? Do you want to tell me if this is a really accurate translation of that? Isugubu situ sesitukela ukutu kiswa in kwezwe lasengizima Africa. Anyone whose first language Zulu can tell me if that's right. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing what I do normally with a translator. Instead of them translating, I use ChatGPT to translate and then send it to a translator and say, is this good Zulu? Has this worked? So you can see that work for translators exists. First language speakers exists. If you use something like this, it just speeds up people who are translating into different languages. I worked at GCIS as the editor-in-chief and had to translate into 11 languages. And not one of those languages was ever 100% correct. Doesn't matter what translator we used, especially Venda and South Sutu. We had the teachers associations telling us that's not proper. And I was like, well, I mean, we use government translators. So you can see that it saves me time, but also it means that I need an expert to be involved in sorting out whether or not it is 100% correct. I don't know if anyone has read this. Can you see this? Let me put it in. Let me put both in there and see if there's a person who's willing to do a quick edit for us. I'm just going to drop it into the Zoom.
And we have Mahmoud's hand up, Des.
Okay, just hang on a sec. I just want to load this in and then I'll get to Mahmoud. So there's the English. There's the isiZulu. Is there anyone who can look at those two and tell me if that's roughly correct, if it's wrong, how wrong is it? What kind of translation would you do? And can you see that using a translator is still so important in our country, in particular, with all the multiple languages we have and the needs to get this right? But for someone who's a Afrikaans speaker or speaks Xhosa, to be able to convert into Afrikaans or English quickly from Xhosa or vice versa, it's quite useful as a tool. So those three things. One is to rewrite existing script. Now there I've said for a specific audience. Two, apparently I'm only chatting to Michael here. Michael, all right. Let me just share that in the general chat. Just give me a second here. I don't know why that's happened. I think it's because, give me a moment. You should all see that, I hope. So there's the Together Showdown unveiling South Africa's forgotten battle. While whoever it is who is a isiZulu guru is reading that and having a look and wouldn't mind editing it for us and telling us where it's wrong or right. Mahmoud, you've got a question. Nice to see you again, by the way.
Yes, thanks. No, I was part of the discussion very early, and then I had to leave and come back. But thanks for that. As always, it's very useful. And no, I'm not answering the question on the Zulu translation. I'm not Zulu speaking. Right. But it's a related question, and it's very hypothetical, really. Let's suppose a translator who may know one or two languages other than English, but feels that he or she wants to use the tool, the chat GPT tool, to do translations using the tool from any language into English. Hypothetically speaking, if the tool does the translation, the editor or the translator can simply then do the sub-editing of the translated text, which means you can now speak to a far broader audience of clients and say, look, I can translate anything into English. Now, that obviously makes a huge difference in terms of your business and so forth. Is that hypothetically possible, that you rely almost entirely on the tool to do a translation and then use your own skill in terms of sub-editing just to do the corrections and updates? What risks are involved in offering that kind of service?
The short answer is yes, you can do it. What we've been doing is, Mahmoud, is having our normal translators who we've hired over the years as backup. So it depends on what level. So if you're going to do something that is based in fact as a journalist, where it's 300 to 400 stories and you're converting those into different languages or a language that you know, and you can check the facts, the names, the title, and so on, you know all of that is correct, then it's very useful because you can see how you can use it as doing our job as editors and journalists first, which is to check everything is correct. So the language part of it is the difficult part, and that's where you need a secondary person to have a look who is a first language speaker or who has the capacity to doing some kind of edit, extra edit on the material itself. example, we used, funny enough, ChatGPT to work with AI to translate into French. And the client, when we started with the client, I said to them, please, will you do the French translations? Because there's multiple French. There's French spoken in Mauritius, which is Creole French. There's French spoken in DRC, which is not the same as French spoken in France or Togo. It's slightly different. So we said to them, look, knowing what we know about translations into multiple languages, don't you want to do the French translation in Canada? And then we'll just do the video from that. And they said, no, you hire the translator. So I did. And then they were not happy with translation. So the devil here is in the conversation that we're having about the actual level of language. So you can see that it's not an easy answer, Mahmoud. As what I did there is that I had to redo the translation. I hired Alliance Française, a first language speaker from Alliance Française, who's registered as a French teacher of diplomat level, who is actually also my French teacher, to do the translations. And France and Canada, the Canadians, French speakers in Canada were still not happy. So working in government, we did the translations of our social media into 11 languages. Some of the folks were not happy with the translations to isiXhosa. Some were not happy with the translation. They said they were slightly different. There was this, it was that. So it's a nightmare when if you offer a service on language translation, be aware that you need a backup. You need an expert in there. But what happens, Mahmoud, is it's not so expensive to do. You're not saying to this person, translate this 2.50 a word or whatever it is, 1.50 minimum, and there's 2,000 words. What you're saying to them is, I will pay you a set fee to just check that this is right. Okay. So I'm not asking you to translate it. I want you to just sub this translation. So it's a much cheaper way to do it for us.
Yeah, but when you say, sorry, when you say check if this is right, you mean a sub-editing task,
yes,
which involves language, grammar, and those kind of checks, but does it include fact checking as well?
No, you have to do the fact. You must do the fact checking.
Yeah.
So the sub-editor.
So he doesn't require, he's not required to do fact checking or need the skills of a journalist per se.
No, they need to look at the language being used. Remember on the ChatGPT prompt I showed you, you say, using the language of common English, convert this to common English, or using to common French, or using the language that I've used here, keep the tone the same. It's aimed at an audience who's a postgraduate audience. So it's aimed at an audience in Southern Africa who do this, do the French the same way. So from there, you take it to someone who knows the language, say, is this correct? Are these two relaying? But you definitely don't get them to fact check. No. So you can see that we still do, our job is safe, in other words, as journalists, because this thing hallucinates. It wants you to be happy. So especially on news, this thing's bad. I'm going to show you Bard in a second. I just wanted to start with this so we get our heads around the fact that there is a limitation with this, that it's not the panacea. It gets things wrong. So our job, Mahmoud, is to make sure it gets it right. And then just to make sure the tone, the value of the grammar is correct. So that's the long answer, yes. Shirley?
Shirley, yeah.
Morning. Hi, morning, Shirley.
Morning, how are you? This is Otis from Shirley's office. So, and with the team, the entire team is following up. Yeah. So,
great. Hi.
So, following up on the translation there. So, I took the translations to Google Translate, and it gave. First, I had my reservations because I saw that this one's it's not so sure. Because it gave like Ututuga, which is something like development, and like this group was to like something Google says is burning drum, because I wasn't sure of that line. But Ututuga is Seningism Africa. It means the developing of South Africa as a country, or the development of South Africa as a country. So which was completely wrong there.
Wrong.
So I then took all the two into Google Translate and got two variations. The first one in Zulu, inputting the Zulu one, then English version gives us the burning drum, the development of South Africa. Then I took the Zulu translation to make it into English, and it says I put the Tugela shot down, unveiling South Africa's forgotten Berkeley. Then it says, umbukiso woTugela wembula impi yaseningizimu Afrika eseyikhohliwe, which is the correct version of it. So on
Great.
that
So,
one, it was wrong.
but you know the language, so you know what's correct and not correct. Can you
Yeah,
see
I
that?
do.
Can you see what's going on here? Is that your job and my job is safe because of what you've just done and what we've just shown each other? Is that it wants you to be happy, so it's going to produce stuff for you, but only you as a journalist will know it's 100% correct, or as a first language speaker. So for translations, I've warned people about this to say it cuts time. But can you imagine translating my 450 word blog, from scratch? Whereas if you're just doing a comparison, sentence by sentence, as a first language speaker and cleaning things up, it's much quicker than if you have to start from scratch and translate the whole thing. Generally speaking, I say generally speaking. So, Mahmoud, I know that's not an easy answer. You can't run a whole business off this. You can take your chance with it. In other words, you can have a go at doing this, but then you have to know the languages that you're doing it in. And that is the problem for most of us, is that I can't speak 11 languages. I can barely speak 4. And even people on this call who speak 5 or 6 know that they can't write all the languages they can speak. And if you start doing this online, thinking you can do Sotho when you're not 100% a Sotho speaker, you know what trouble you get into. So it reduces time for mainly the material that you're going to get as a writer from your writers. So your writers come in, your journalists, and then you tell them, use ChatGPT, rewrite it, and then send me the text. What people said to me, but they don't know the story. I said, well, they got to check the facts. They're going to make sure, is this quote correct? You can't change the quotes. So you say to ChatGPT, do not, or using this text, keep the quotes exactly the same within the inverted commas, the quotes. These are quotes of people. It's a real source. We want to change. We want to keep the quotes, please. Rewrite the story based on the following outcomes. So we can go and have a look at stories in the news today. So I'm just going to pick some. The story that's trending apart from the Middle East, which is hardcore, and I don't really want to do that in this session, is maybe the rugby. Okay, which is a good story. So here's IOL's first few paragraphs. I'm going to share it with you now. I'm just going to copy and paste it so you don't have to waste time watching me do this. I had a couple of other things, but I think given what's been said already, but Kate has asked, I'm just truncating this training very quickly. So I'm going to just paste that in there. Go back to share. So what I've done is I went to IOL because it's free, and just quickly, who wrote the story? I'm trying to see the source. Published 1 hour ago. Maybe it's IOL writer. Sorry, I'm just going to get to the end. So I'm looking for AFP. Shame. IOL's main story on the rugby. They don't even use the South African writer. They're using AFP to write it. Tisk. Anyway, so we go back to the page then. Let me just go back to the page and I'll share it with you again. Okay. So there I haven't copied the headline or anything. I've clicked on I'm going to go back to, stop sharing a second. It deleted my carefully copied material. So back to IOL, go to the first section. Now I wanted to do something for me. So I'm just putting out these materials here and pasting it in. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay. So now I've pasted a couple of paragraphs in there. So using the following, this is where it's really useful. Following text, please produce 5 social media inserts, and including hashtags and images. Okay, let me see what it does. So the first social media, it's going on Twitter, basically. It's doing a Twitter. I'll do something else with it now. But you can see, so again, Mahmoud, it's doing something useful for me, is reversioning the material, which is something we do every day. You do headlines. I'll get back to a couple of other things, but I've gone to a real story in real time. So we can have a look at the social media that it did. I've said, suggest images. So it suggests an image of Antoine Dupont, the captain, the French captain. So what is and the piece was about the French lost. They're a bit upset about the ref. Everyone who loses is upset about the ref. Believe me, we would have been upset about the ref. So, so that's the angle. Tough loss for hashtag Team France, because that's the hashtag being used by them. So it knows what the hashtag is. It hasn't thumbsucked this. So one important thing is when you use ChatGPT, it references what is happening and it produces hashtags that exist. So it's reading, even though ChatGPT is historical, it doesn't analyze things necessarily beyond January last year. It still is able to access hashtags and things like that, or at least suggest them. If you want to double check that these are the hashtags, we can go and have a look and add hashtags. But the important thing is it's done a lot of summary work for me. The hardest thing to do sometimes is précis information. Now you've got to make sure it's covered the main stuff. The story basically was France's captain upset about the refereeing, the decision of the game, frustration, and then some background in the game itself. So how did the game go? You know, what happened? So I know what the story is. So I know what social media generally, 5 pieces should come out, generally. So it's said tough loss for Team France, Dupont shares. Number 2, Ben O'Keefe, the ref. Now it's focusing on the ref. Can you see it's taking each key point of that story? Now it's going to talk about the ref. Did the referee's decision impact the outcome? Question. France's scrum half. Think so. So there's little icons. Can you see the little logos and icons popping in here? And it's suggesting images. You need a picture of the ref. The third one, image of Etzebeth's try, crucial try. Right, the lock bulldozes way to a game-changing try, but was it a fair play? What's your take? So you can see it's generating the social, it knows what social media tone is, it's generating that. And you may think that you'd like something else. There's something else that's missing here for me. I don't know if it was in the story, but I know from watching the game that Cheslin Colby's knockdown of the attempted conversion was one of the crucial moments of the game, but it's not mentioned here because it's not in the IOL story, I don't think. But you can see what it's doing. It's got these, it's saved me about half an hour of work. We're just chatting about it now. I could go and look through it. Are we finding that when we use this to do our work, communications work, we're changing very little of these things, of these social media things. Very good at doing that. But now I'm going to say to it, focus more on Cheslin Colby. It may not be in the story. I haven't read the story fully. Oh, it has. Okay. Okay. So now it's spitting out. Now it's got the story about the try, dazzling footwork, Cheslin Colby's match-worn jersey from want to own a piece of history. It's even suggesting that we should get hold of the jersey and sell it. Want to own a piece. So that's hallucinating. Obviously, I don't own it, so I can hardly sell it. But there's an idea. Anyway, so that's the use of following on from the comments that we've had from Kate and also from Mahmoud and from Shirley's team is to go, what's the damaging thing we can do with this thing and what's the positive thing we can do with it in the short term? So the big thing is to take existing content, reversion it based on something we're going to ask it to do. So I've also translate the headline into isiZulu. So hold on a second. I'm not happy with that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop sharing. Now I'm going to go to Bard. So I'm going to open Bard, bard.google.com. Same applies, by the way. You need to register to use it. So I'm going to just go straight to it. I know this is ChatGPT, but in all the training that I've done with AIP, I've always shown you the alternatives for a reason. One is that we don't want to be bought and sold on one system, you know. We want these systems to compete with each other to do the best for us. So if there's another system to search, I don't just use Google, I use DuckDuckGo, for example, for the same reason. So here's Bard. So I'm going to drop this into Bard. What I'm going to do with this, going back to ChatGPT, is I'm going to ask Chat. I'm going to ask Bard if ChatGPT translated this properly. But can you see what we're doing? We know what we know. Okay, we know that it didn't. But this is, we know why it didn't. Okay, because it got the phraseology wrong, and it turned something into battle into heat or some kind of blaze and so on. So I'm saying to Bard now, read. I'm going to share the screen again with you so you can see. Read these. Let me just write at the top there. Whoops. Have a look at these two sentences. The first is the original headline. The second is the isiZulu translation. So I'm, like I've just said to us, I'm saying to it, is the translation correct? If not, why? Please correct it to the tone of the English and the meaning. Okay. It's quite a complex thing I've asked it to do there. I've asked it to analyze the two, then to tell me if it's right, and then if it's not right, to tell me what it thinks is right. So that's quite a lot of things to do, and that's AI's power. Now we know what we know. So it says here, the Zulu translation headline is correct in terms of meaning, is non-accurate translation of the tone of the English. The English headline is a play on words using the word showdown to suggest a dramatic and exciting event. The Zulu translation, ukutukizwa, means development, as you said, right? Development of South Africa. So it recognizes that the translation is wrong. Importantly, this is also using in the background Google Translate, which was used by a colleague to get to this. So, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm double checking this myself. Why? Tell me, okay, if it's wrong, tell me why. Don't just tell me it's wrong. It's a classic situation we get to in journalism and as editors. When you say to a staff member it's wrong, and they say why, and you say because I think so, you know, no, because the spelling is wrong, the tone is wrong, the grammar is wrong. So there, it produces a bunch of translations, which convey the idea of discovering something new and exciting. He has a more literal translation. So they even go further. It says here's a literal translation. Africa. So it's giving me options. Then again, what I do with these headlines is give it to the first language speaker and say, okay, which of these do you think is best and why? But I haven't wasted his or her time by saying, here, read this 450 word thing, then create this Zulu, then do this. So I've truncated the process. I'm pretty sure, having read these two things, that I can see where this is going in terms of language. And this is the headline. You'll say to me, yeah, but why don't you just give the story to someone? Everything that we've done so far would be much quicker if someone just dreamed up the headline. But you remember, we're in a perfect world here where we have hours to do this, to go back and forth. I don't have hours. Mahmoud doesn't have hours. I have a certain amount of time to translate to Afrikaans. There are times where I'm going to accept that my Afrikaans, I will say that the tone has changed slightly. It's never going to be 100% because that's not how the real world works. But I'm going to get pretty close. So that's my attitude with this process of taking translations, is to say, we're going to make sure the meaning is the same, make sure we don't damage anything, and then make sure we offer the service. On translations, there's a difficult thing to apply here, which is much bigger than just AI, which is the internet. And that is search engine optimization is against multiple languages on one website. I don't know if people are aware of that. That search engines like Google don't like two languages on a website. They don't know how to deal with this unless it's a language training website. If it's not, and you're just doing news, they're going to de-rank you on the news because one of the ranking systems they use is language. In other words, what language is this? When you go and search in your language, the algorithm in Google, the search engine algorithm says, this website is English. So what in search engine terms, the website design terms, what you have to do is build microsites. You have to actually technically, if you want to really grow this business, Mahmoud, you have to create a separate microsite that is of the language, rather than having multiple languages on your homepage. The search engine does not like that. So now we're doing something with languages here, and we've got a multilingual society, and we're trying to create a new business model. And we have multilingual on English Afrikaans on some sites, or Zulu in English on other sites, and so on. It looks funky. I ran a website because in Zelle in government that had, and a newspaper that used the same logic. We had to do that because it was just understood that we should be having multiple languages in the site. But eventually the site is supposed to be redesigned with micro elements. So in other words, pages that are for Zulu and so on. So that's the difficulty, guys, when we're using AI and translations. We've done a lot of, I've spent a lot of time doing this because every time we've done presentations and worked with the clients, as I've just explained with French, the AI thing, the monsters lurked in the background. So what I tend to do now with these things is if I'm translating for a specific client, I'll translate it and then I'll send it to them and say, is this tone right? And then they'll send it back and sign it off, and then I'll put it online. So there's always a catch process, an editing, sub-editing process. That's part of our expectation when it comes to using ChatGPT, generally speaking. So has everyone managed to, who's not managed to download it in the time that I've been making a noise in your ears? Has everyone managed to have a look at it, or at least try and download ChatGPT? And then, of course, the other one, which is Bard, which I'll put in again, just in case there's a problem here. Give me a moment. I'm putting in the reply zone to the program, so you can all hopefully see it. Can everyone see? Can everyone see the bard.google.com? So first, go and register if you can now. I'll give you a minute to do that, to complete the ChatGPT registration. You're going to get an email. You reply to the email, you log on. You can download the app, but I'm hesitant to do that without us physically together, because all sorts of alternative apps have appeared on Google Play Store and on App Store, on Apple App Store, all sorts of alternatives that are trying to look like ChatGPT. So rather just log on to through that link that I sent you, chat.openai.com. Register as a user there, get the email, reply to the email, and then log on. Can we do that for a minute, please?
There's just a question about ChatGPT and Bard. So you definitely work between the two of them. So would you say that for our members, what we should be doing is basically looking at both, and as you have been doing, sort of checking things against each other. My question is actually, as a starting point, would you just use ChatGPT and kind of maybe when you're a little bit more familiar, move to Bard, or right from the get-go, which I think you're saying, we need to do both? Thanks.
You need to do both, because good question, Kate. I mean, it's if you look at I put the link into the chat again together. Can you see how similar they are? And that's precisely the point, is that we should be using them together. And I'll just describe why I use both those, and then I use something with chat, which I'll explain now. It's an advanced use, Michael. It hopefully answers some of the question you had earlier. It's advanced use when it comes to data, but that unfortunately you have to buy, and it's about 250 Rand a month, so it's not that cheap. But for a business like the one I'm working in, it's crucial what it can do. And it's very, it's a little bit complex, but I'll explain to you what it can do, show you a little bit, just to whet your appetites for those who are on the call, who want to start using this beast for something much more powerful. But the short answer is yes. So use Chat OpenAI and you talk to it and you use Bard. I use Chat about 90% of the time and Bard 10%. I basically use Bard to test what Chat has done, only because I'm using Chat as a paid user, which has a beta system in it. It has a data analysis tool that's very powerful. It can produce images, graphs, all kinds of things for me, as well as presentations. It spits out PowerPoint presentations and so on. So, but you have to pay for it. And then CSV, in other words, comma delineated material that you can download as files. It analyzes video and it pulls out screen grabs, and it can rebuild, you can design social media off the screen grabs. It does all kinds of things. It saves me hours and hours and hours, but nothing for Mahala, they say. So you have to pay for it. So download Chat, start with that. The link in there is, you know, if you can copy that now and get to it at some other time. Okay, so the reason why is because you get them an option for one to test the other. And the process I'm using at the moment is I go to Chat and I test Chat's responses in Bard. You on this call may reverse that. Bard's advantage over Chat is that it's contemporary. Chat only goes to January 2022 with its information. So you can't ask Chat GPT now to talk about the Gaza attacks and the attacks on Israel. You can't do that. It won't know what you're talking about, or it will refuse to answer. Whereas Bard, if you say to Bard, give me a rough breakdown of what's happened since such and such a date in Israel and Gaza, it'll actually do that for you. Or tell me about the Rugby World Cup, what's happening lately. It'll do that. Whereas Chat will not do that, because Chat only goes until January 2022 with its information gathering. So for the information that become relevant, you've got to feed Chat. So I'm going to show you that now. So as we did with the controversial refereeing, can you see I've just alerted ChatGPT and its system to this fact. Now, somewhere on the computers that run ChatGPT's systems, it knows that this has happened. So it's stored that information. So every time you're working with these large language models, they call them LLMs, you're giving it information. It's like you're feeding its brain. It's really interesting that we're doing that together. So the more that we use this, we actually serving a purpose in a strange way of improving its knowledge base. And this is the problem for us in the future, and the threat that we needed to talk about at the end, which we're at now, Kate, which has come up in constantly, which is ethics. So I was training United Nations Development Program on the use of AI in East Africa, and they want to generate artificially people. They want to generate faces and say the face of East Africa. And we had a big argument about whether that's feasible, whether that should be done. And their problem was, they said, when we use someone's face, we are abusing their identity. Even if they sign off and say, we give you permission to use our face in our final report XYZ, we still are, we're taking their image and we're using it to our own advantage. They should be paid or something. So it's become an ethical nightmare for people's images in publications. So one of the solutions, they said, is to take a generic Rwandan looking person that AI generates and to use that in their report. What's wrong with that? Any comments? Anyone want to comment on that as an ethic? Or any comments about doing that? Using AI as a vehicle to generate things. Should you, for example, Mahmoud and Shirley and others using it, Peter perhaps, myself, should we say to clients, we are using AI to generate the op-ed that we're getting paid to write? What do you think? Any comments? Writer, source. It's a difficult one.
Des, I mean, my sense is that we always talk about transparency and being very clear about where we get things. So you're right. I mean, this is a very important kind of topic around just being absolutely clear, you know, who our source is. And I'm thinking that actually there might be something useful. And I'm actually thinking about, you know, Mahmoud, you sit on the press council. I mean, I'm presuming the press council has done quite a lot of ethics work on this. I mean, we probably need a session actually with the press council about this. But yeah, my question would actually be to Mahmoud, who sits on the press council. I mean, how much work has actually been done in that regard? Thanks.
Good question. Mahmoud, is there an answer to that, or is it early days? And what's people's focus? What do you on the call? What do you think? Remember, we building the blueprints here as journalists on this topic. So some say we should, some say we shouldn't. So to give you a real world example, in the US, some of the newspapers are using it. They say the sports results are generated by AI, and a lot of the readers don't like it. They're saying to the newspaper, we don't want that, or it got it wrong, or they're saying to the websites that are doing this, we can read that it's AI. You can see it's AI because it talks so, you know, its language is flowery. So how far do you go? My thought about this, my own personal opinion on this, if you'd like to hear it, is that you don't always have to do that unless you're doing a specific face to front thing. So for example, if you are writing an entire story using AI, then you should do it. But if I'm rewriting, editing, checking facts, fixing grammar, giving a little spin on my social media, the answer is no. I shouldn't be telling people it's AI because it's staff writer, you know, or staff. It's produced by me. My team, who journalists, understand the difference between fact and not fact. So it's generated by us. Part of my team now is this intern who I've hired, right? Or I have here. My intern is called ChatGPT. I don't tell everyone my intern is so-and-so generating this story. So why do I have to tell them that the intern has helped me fix the budget? And the intern happens to be AI. It's none of their business, really, is it? So that's my point of view. However, if I'm doing a picture, right, if I generate a picture of someone who doesn't exist in Uganda, and I use it as my main picture on the side, I need to say there, this was generated in AI. I think you have to do that. Can you see the difference? For me, the ethic difference between generating content that is the content, the picture, versus me going to a video that I've filmed and telling AI to pull out 5 screen grabs for the beginning, middle, and end. And it pulls them out. And then I say, no, I don't like number 3, try again. And it pulls out another one. And I say, excellent, saved me like half an hour. Then I say, right, resize it, which it does using ChatGPT Advanced. And then I say, and now I suggest 5 social media text relating to those 5. And this is the main topic, and it does it. And I've just done like 4 hours of work in 10, 15 minutes. And then I get on to try and do other work about other things. That whole process is no one's business but mine. Can you see that you can use this tool as an enabler? You don't say to people, oh, we use SharePoint, you know, and we exchange our files on it. It's a tool that you use. It's no one's business really that you're using it. It caters, that's my feeling ethically, but I'm sure, Mahmoud, you have an idea, and Shirley and others.
Des, I also saw Matipa's hand up. So Matipa and then Shirley's colleagues.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Thanks, Matipa.
Hi, my name is Matipa Pijao. Good morning to you all. I have a question about this ChatGPT and that part. That if you are making an article about it, how accurate is it? Because if you are making an article, you have to go out and source information from real sources, and sometimes you might do it telephonically. But when you rely on this AI chatbot, it doesn't go out and seek real information from people. It just takes data that was posted by somebody somewhere, or the memory that was fed on the feedbacks. How accurate is the news from it?
This is a brilliant question. It is completely inaccurate. You never, ever use it to generate a news story for you from scratch. Never. What you do is you go and you get your journalist to go out who maybe is writing in their second language, right? And they come back with a whole bunch of facts, and you've tested it with them. You say, "Are you sure that spelling is right? Is that the title? Where did this happen? Are you sure about this?" You test them like you and I do as editors. And then you pop all the stuff into ChatGPT and say, "Write a story that's 400 words long." Or you say to the journalist that you're working with, "Write the story." They bring it back, and you say to them, "I need to tidy it up. I need to speed it up. I need you to write 3 of these stories." You take their facts, as I did with the IOL story, copy it, paste it into chat, and say, "Now write a 400-word story with an audience that is South African, looking at the following main theme on the story." So you can see you're acting as like a super sub. But a good question, Matipa, you never, ever, I must stress this, never ask these AI vehicles to write you something from scratch. They will get it wrong, news-wise. That's the important thing for us as journalists, is they will never replace us. It cannot replace us. People are trying to do that now. Corporates, nation states, bad players, they're trying to generate false information that just looks good. It's written nicely, so it must be right. But my job and your job, Matipa, is to go and still do what we do. But it makes it much easier for us to get the spelling and the grammar right, because it's going to spit out this thing that's grammatically pure, right? It just gets it right. And it saved me. How often have you on this call made the journalist sit there for 5 hours rewriting a story that's still rubbish when you get it back? I want my news out there. My journalist has done that. You take the story and you say to the journalist, "Now read that aloud back to me." That's your facts just written in a way that's funky. Take the headline, reverse it. You can say to ChatGPT, "Okay, now reverse the focus. Write angle 2 as angle 1. Right. Journalist, meanwhile, hit the street and get me another story. Can you see the advantage to using this tool? I'm not an emissary for these tools, but I understand that we can use these things like a pen. We can use them for our advantage. But Matipa is a brilliant question. The answer is no, no, no. Do not ask it to write an analysis of China-America relationships. Do not. Use it to generate research on that question. And then what do you and I do? We question what we get every sentence. Oh, really? Did that happen? Did this happen? Let me go find out. So we do not take this as a news generating vehicle at all, at any stage. It's really something to use as a tool to tidy ourselves up, make us time. You don't want to say to the expensive sub you're hiring for a small fortune, "Now write 5 social media headlines." Please, that should be automated. I mean, it's rubbish. It's just, the real story is the story. Man killed by truck. All right, can you see? So, and then that gives us and the journalists another 2 hours to use. Hey, journalist intern person, I want 3 stories from you today, not just 1, because of AI. So you can see what I'm saying here. So, Matipa, it's a brilliant question. No, don't get it to generate stuff from scratch. It will hallucinate. There are a couple of other questions here. Shirley's put something in. I think it's Shirley.
Shirley's
Des, hi.
If
Morning,
that's not
colleague.
hallucinating, I don't know what is. Hi, Shirley.
Hi. I just want to say that I totally agree with you, hey, because a lot of the stuff that we put into ChatGPT is original. Because remember, we are grassroots publications, and we're reporting off the streets, and it's very intimate kind of reporting that you're not going to get across like a ChatGPT. So we put our stories on, and then we do the whole grammar thing, and it adds a level of sophistication that we don't have in terms of the skill sets in the office. So that's the value add. And also for me, I see ChatGPT as a sustainability tool. That's what we're talking about all the time now. If it's giving me that level of sophistication, I can then, I'm deepening reader engagement. I can then, I'm building audiences. I'm able to sell, and I'm more appreciated on the streets across my titles. And we've seen that on the chat group. So people are saying, "Oh, wow, your stories are looking really good." I'm not going to go out there and say, but I'm using ChatGPT as an aid. So that's, that's what I wanted to raise. And also the other thing is, the auntie down the road, a lot of our stuff is on WhatsApp. We're using WhatsApp to drive audiences to our websites. So the auntie down the road, she's going to use ChatGPT, and she becomes my competition because they're getting the news out first. So
No,
that's
precisely.
that's the other dilemma. And thirdly, I was doing something on a car race and that my son participated in, and I noticed that ChatGPT rejected when I said, "Give me a sensual version of the story," because we were trying to build. I wanted to highlight the excitement and the passion that was of that piece. It was a small piece, but what it rejected it completely. And then what it did was it accepted the romanticize this piece to make it more appealing. So sometimes the words, the prompting that we use is really important for it to become really creative. And also, obviously, ChatGPT, like words like sensual or sexual, it won't accept. On a lighter note, I thought I'll just add that into this to the piece that we were now that we're talking about it. Are you guys there? Okay, so
Yes.
yeah.
And hi again, Des. Concerning the link, I shared the link onto the chat there. This is an article from the BBC which says ChatGPT now accesses up-to-date information for some premium users, but it hasn't come to all the other people there. I thought it was important that I might share that.
Okay, as I said, things are changing all the time, but let's do a little test here. I'm sharing my screen again. So I've got to chat. I'm saying, hey, I call it Miss Gibbet, by the way. We have a relationship now. Anyway, hey, Miss Gibbet. I hear that you are now sharing up-to-date information from, what do you say, from, I was reading that piece from select news agencies.
No, for some premium users.
For some premium users. Is this true? And how can I get it? Okay. No. I don't have real up-to-date information to share. So here's a case of ChatGPT disputing the BBC story. I've read this story. Thank you for sharing. I read it while Shirley was chatting to us. I read that. It's saying no, because I know ChatGPT is only updated up until a period one. But hold on a second. You said the premium service, right? Okay. So let's this is the perfect moment for me to show you this premium service. Sorry, my dog's having a bit of a moment behind me here. So you can see this ChatGPT 5 and 4, 3.5 and 4. Can you see that? So this is the funky bit. So ChatGPT 4 has something here called advanced data analysis. I'm being trained now in advanced data use. It's called used to be called data preferences or something. Anyway, so what this is the thing you're talking about. So if I click on there, you'll see here now ChatGPT. It looks the same, doesn't it? But you see this little plus sign here on the left. Can you see there? The little plus sign there, attach files. That means I can now load stuff. I can load videos into that and say screen grab videos. I can load text. I can load images. I can load PowerPoint presentations. I can load Excel spreadsheets and say, read this. More importantly, I can load PDFs and tell it to read the PDF, pull out the key points, and then produce a presentation for me from the key points. It takes a while, and you've got to talk to it like an intern. No, that's not right. Try again. It doesn't do it straight away. It uses Python. It codes, uses code real time. It's coding for you. You can watch it do it if you use this. So let me go and ask the question again. Hi, Ms. Gibbet. I hear that you have up-to-date information about news, and I can read that. How do I get it? So let me see what it says now. Take a second. Hello, actually, no, it's still not real time. So what's happened is BBC's misread, or someone, I read that story. It's not quite true. So it used to be up until September 2021, but now it goes until January 2022. I don't have real-time news updates or any data after that date. So that's on the record, okay? That's not hallucinating. If I asked it, let me show you. Prove it. I'm going to say, prove it. Tell me about the Israeli-Hamas war. Okay, the clashes. Tells me about the background. Is it telling me about what's happened in the last week? Tell me about formed 1987, 2006 election. I'm going to stop it here. Stop generating. No. Tell me about what happened in October 2023. See what it does now. I'm sorry, I don't have access to blah, blah, blah. Can you see? All right. So hold on a second, but I need some background, and I'm not going to believe it because I believe no one. I'm a journalist, right? Like you. So what do I do here? If I want, we're going through a test case, test facts. We're doing this real time. You can see, no, it will not do it. So how do I do it? I go and get facts and I put it in and say, check these for me based on the spelling. I do not ask it if this is a fact. Did this person go from A to B today? It will not be able to answer that question. You and I can do it in court. Yes, Your Honor. As a journalist, I did see the brick fly from that hand to that person's head. Can you see that this thing is not that? It's not a reporter. It's not a proper journalist. It's a tool. So, however, but I need to know something about the background to this conflict because it's happening and it's global and it's going to impact all of us. So what do you think I do? I go to Bard. So because it's Bard, I'm going to share Bard with you again. So you can see this is the important thing to use these tools. Remember, first thing you do, new chat. I don't go to the old ones you can see on the left there. I just go new chat. Tell me about, okay, what happened in Gaza in October 2023? Very broad, isn't it? So will it tell me? Is it up to date? Is it going to say, no, sorry, I don't talk to you? I'm a text-based AI that is outside my capabilities. So there's a lot of stuff that you do on AI that it will not answer. I tried to generate a picture. I'm doing a podcast on the Russian invasion of Finland in 1939. It's a really interesting story. So I said to a generative AI, which generates images, generate a picture of a Russian soldier in Finland, and it would not do it. It won't do it. It says, no, I'm not going to do that. It won't talk about war. It won't do stuff that's negative. It won't allow you to break into banks and so on. So maybe I need to get around it. This is the question technique. What questions should I ask you, Bard, about the Israeli Hamas war of October, which is ongoing, October 2023? What do you think is it going to give me nothing? Is it going to tell me no? She doesn't like this question. I can't assist you with that. So anything that's sensitive, really, really sensitive, religion, violence, war, AI, these AI large language models don't like to do it. So I say, okay, tell me about Gaza. Then it's let's see what it does now. It's not a loaded question, I hope. So no, it's not going to help me with that. So back I go to ChatGPT. Can you see chat? New chat again. Tell me about Gaza. Very broad question. Certainly, says ChatGPT. Can you see what we're doing here? This is our intern who's going to the library and asking questions. So now obviously it's going to go back to January 2022 because that's the latest ChatGPT can give me. So we've just done I think it's a really interesting test of these tools where we've gone headlines. We can generate social media. I've showed you the advanced thing very quickly. I don't want to bend your ear too much on this advanced tool. It's, by the way, it's still generating the background as we're chatting here. But when you moved from Chat GPT 3.5 and decide that you want to do something more powerful with it, and you can upload data analysis and so on, and get it to do quite complex things. Read a whole PDF of a certain length. It gets it wrong unless you break it down. You've got to ask it to read the first couple of pages, analyze the first pages, generate text. You can't just feed a 96-page PDF into it and say, read it, because it's too much for these. It's like it's too much for an intern. You say to the intern, okay, read the introduction, Tell me what it means. Right. Now that you read the introduction, read the main findings, page 17. Now you've already looked at this PDF. You're not asking to tell you what the PDF is. And you say, go on page 17, there's a table. Tell me what the table, outline the text from the table, and then build me an infographic from it. Something like that. How was the tool then able to tell us about the rugby earlier, not the Gaza? Because, Peter, I copied the Gaza, the rugby story from IOL into chat. Remember, I showed you I went copied IOL, paste into chat. So this is what you do. As a journalist, you copy the material. Someone sends you a story that's rubbish. It's all true, but it's written, clumsy and bad. So you take the facts, you put it that you know are facts. You've checked it with the journalist. Who, how, what, where, when. Yes, tick, 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 tick. Now let me make it sing like Shirley wants it on her site. Copy that text, paste into ChatGPT, write this based on an audience in Southern Africa who is middle-aged, or my audience. This is an example of some of the stuff I've done on my site. So what you can do is you can copy from a site. So I can go to IOL again. I'm just using that as an example. So let me just share it with you. So there's IOL. So what I can do here, I'm going to news. I can actually, I can select a story here. So this live blog, and I can copy the text, paste it into chat, and then I can copy my own new stuff. So in other words, I can go to my own website that's been edited and so on, copy an example of text, paste it into chat, and then and then my journalist brings their story. I can get the pieces and say, now rewrite the story for my journalist based on the style of the site. And it spits out your writing style. That's the difference, Peter, is you go and get the facts, you feed the machine, it gives you something lovely. But you don't go to the machine and say, what are the facts? Can you see? Our job is secure. However, if we have to use this thing to make our job better and easier. Who sat here on this call, like me, I'm sure, scratching a head trying to work out 5 tweets? I mean, really? That's like a job for the idiot. But it's read by so many people, it's going to have an effect on my website. So I have to do it. But it's just another job. So why doesn't the idiot machine do it for me when I've told it how I want it done? Then I can take my people that have cost so much money and are so important to me, my staff, and get them to be productive by hitting the ground and finding more stories I can give to the machine to do social media, spit out social media shorts from. Can you see that that's the essence of using AI as journalists or as people in the media business? I don't like using Bing, Michael. I must be honest. Bing, Michael's asking why can we use the browse with Bing option from the drop-down menu and chat GPT-4 and starting a new chat? You can, but I just don't like Bing. I've been using the internet since the early 90s, since it first came out, and I just don't like Bing. So I know Bing has improved. People all tell me it's improved. It's very good, but that's my personal preference. But for folks who are learning to use AI at any level, rather just go straight to the prompt and learn to use the prompt, the question technique. Hey, AI, I've just given you some facts. Ask me some questions about it. What do you want to use this for? So I wanted to use this as a blog. Suggest some ways to write the blog for an audience that is postgraduate, educated, living in America. Spit something out. Right? Okay, translate it into Afrikaans. I send it to my Afrikaans translator. Read this. Here's the original. Tell me what's wrong and what's right about it, and I'll pay you like $250 instead of paying you $2,000, and you'll get it back to me next week. You know what I mean? So that's the broad approach to using the AI tool generally. The ethics of it are still being built. It's early days. So you can imagine these folks, I gave you an example of United Nations going, how do we use this to generate a human that doesn't exist because we don't like people on our sites to be identified as the main picture, and we don't want to use stock footage. So let's generate our own picture. Then you got to say at the bottom, something generated by AI, or do you? Philemon, good question. The Reverend asked, which one works best? Okay. If you're doing stuff around contemporary issues, Bard generally is better because Bard is more updated constantly. If you're doing stuff on data, Bard is generally thought as better. You know, what's the petrol price in Ukraine now? What's the petrol price in South Africa? If you're doing interactive text chat kind of level things, in other words, journalism things, ChatGPT is better. Rewrite this, do that. So that's the difference between the two. But I'm telling you this, that will change, firstly, in the next few, who knows, weeks, months, firstly. But secondly, you personally and your team will find one or the other way works better for you. But for us, that's best. I've purchased a ChatGPT. I really like the beta app that's in there that analyzes data, can read PDFs, can read videos, can pull screen grabs, can analyze objects inside images, which is, you know, algorithms could not do that until relatively recently, or not do that in an open way that I could access. So I'm using all those things. So and then I check some of the extraneous things that I'm getting, like we've just done with Bard. Hey, Bard, is this true? Is this right? Why not? And then from there, you know, so as I said, it's 80 to 90% on ChatGPT, 10% on Bard. Can I rewrite old story and make it new? Yes, you give it. So I've just done that with IOL. Let's just try something else very, very quickly. We're only out of time here, but let's just go. I go to Reuters, get something that happened. That's all terrible violence and death going on. So let's get something from business. Or the AFP. So I'm just going to get an old story. And now I'll say to rewrite. So it's something that happened in Ecuador. The new leader there. I'm just going to take the first. I'll share now so you can see what's going on. Sorry, bear with me. Go back to there, new chat. So, Philemon here is, I'm going to share this. I've gone to a website and I've selected a story about Ecuador that's been written. So it's an old story. Let's just call it that. So I'm saying, using this text, change the angle to, now the important thing that we're doing here is we're knowing what we want. Remember, we're briefing it, or we have an idea. If I don't, using this text, make suggestions for alternative news, news, I'm missing an R there, news angles, not angels, for an audience in Southern Africa. Then I just paste the text in. Okay, so it reads the text from NPR or somewhere. So it's the text that in Ecuador, there's been an election. An experienced politician and heir to the fortune built on banana trade has won Ecuador's presidential runoff amid unprecedented violence, blah, blah, blah. So it's just a couple of paragraphs you can see there. So I've asked it to, remember what you said at the start of the training, you ask it to ask you or to give you something. For an audience in South Africa, essential to craft news angles that are both relevant and engaging. Well, I mean, that's so generic, isn't it? Anyway, here are some alternative news angles. Economic ties and trade implications. How Ecuador's new president, banana trade heir, could impact trade relations with Southern Africa. Oh, okay, that's something I could go and investigate. I can't rewrite that. So I'm going to say to it, okay, well, it's giving me some options. Number 2, comparative political dynamics. That's quite interesting. Elections, violence, post-colonial. Okay, I didn't think about that necessarily. Maybe I would have if we had more time together. Security violence. Learning from Ecuador. How did drug trafficking related violence in Ecuador mirror security concerns in Southern Africa? Whoa, that's quite an advanced thought. Youth and politics. A new generation takes charge. Can you see? This is giving me ideas. Yes, you'd say to me, we would get these ideas we set together. I'd say to you, yes, but it's just saved me half an hour. Then, okay, so I'm not going to spend any more time here, but you can see I can then do a long piece on Ecuador and South Africa or something. Or I can say to it, now rewrite the news piece with an accent or for a Southern African audience. Now, there's a number of things. I'll post the same thing in. The story can be tailored to emphasize aspects that might be more relatable of interest. Here's a revised version. This is where the machine gets interesting, but also dangerous, because it's in its memory banks are thoughts about South Africa and about our news. So it may start getting biased, right? So this is where you, as a journalist, and me again have to read this thing and go, from banana trade to presidential power, what Ecuador's election means for Southern Africa. Now, I know that the story I've read, given it, is true. I know I've read it, or it's based on journalists that have done their analysis. So I'm fairly convinced that it's accurate as journalism goes. So I don't have to go down that road first. So I know that. So now I see, is this relevant for me? The turn of events that resonates political dynamics across continents. So it's trying to broaden. Ecuador witnessed the rise. So it's rewriting the angle in the turn of events that resonate. And we're going to go back to the original. I know we run out of time here. Let me just quickly do this and show you how it's changed the first piece. So the piece here started on him, Daniel Noboa, an experienced politician and heir to the fortune built on the banana trade, hana. So now its angle is, in a turn of events that resonates with political dynamics across continents, Ecuador's witnessed the rise of this guy. So it said, okay, the angle now is more across continents. So it's rewritten that. So that's an example, Philemon, of generating a new kind of angle from an old story. But you still got to check the facts and read it. Make sure that it's not tweaking or hallucinating. But to do this, for you and I to do this, would take, it's time consuming. Rewrite the story. Oh, Peter, 358 Rand per month. I mean, the Rand is our problem here. So the chat, that's why I didn't train, Peter. I didn't train you on ChatGPT 4 today. I just mentioned it because it's very frustrating for us in South Africa. The costs here. I ran a business like you, Peter. So 358 times 12. It's 7,000 Rand. Roughly a year. I'm going to spend on this tool. 7,000 Rand. Maybe I spend 1,000 Rand on an intern every month, and I've got an extra person, a real person, a reporter, right? So, but Chat GPT 3.5 is free. So that's why we train on it for you this morning, is use Chat GPT, use Bard. Bard is free. Use it to do the restriction. Know that there are limitations on use. You can't do more than 10,000 words or 2,000 words if you're a free user. You can't, if you do more than 20 or 30 questions on free chat, it'll suddenly stop and say, that's your number for the day. Come back tomorrow. So there are limitations. But, how often are you going to ask it to rewrite a piece? Maybe once a day, twice a day. Do the social media headlines for you once a day, twice a day. If you do it 4 or 5 times a day, you're still working within the free ambit. So, that's for us. Is the important thing is to save time, not cost you anything, make time to do more productive things as editors, journalists, reporters, get them on the ground, get more facts. Importantly, when reporters see this thing, it makes them write better. You know what I mean? They look at it and they go, a human interest angle. All right, I'll try that in the future. I'll think like that. I'll try and get more stories like that. So, yes, it's going to make some journalists lazy. But you need to know what you see. All of us on this call know we can see rubbish writing when we see it and good writing. And so I think in the end, in the next few months and maybe the next year, a lot of the ethics around this are going to blow up and change. These apps themselves, these AI, these large language models are going to change. Maybe Bard will start asking for money, once they've enticed you to use it. The old story. Now that you find it so easy to use, it's 358 rands, Peter. And one-time payment of only 2,000, whatever it is. So they're businesses. So underneath all of this, we can't sell our souls to this machine, but we can use it while it's useful. So any other questions?
Yeah, so let's just take maybe one or two more questions, and then let's conclude the session. But yeah, one or two more questions would be great, if there are any.
So I wish you all luck using it, if there aren't. And if you have any issues with logging on, please go to those two links. I hope you've copied and pasted them already, the bar.google or chat.openai.com. Beware of false chat.openai websites. There'll be especially apps on the stores, Google Play Store and App Store. There are people who are trying to look like they're using the same icon and all kinds of shenanigans. So make sure you go to those links that I put in here. Those are the official links to go and get these two if you haven't tried to log on already. Remember to do the conform to the profile, persona pattern, question pattern, and your alternatives. Ask it to give you alternatives. Those are the three main ones I think we should try and remember always to use for now. Okay, thank you.
So thank you. And I mean, I will definitely send out those links. Valent and I will send out those links. So you've got the correct links. We'll send it out to all our members. We'll send out Des's presentation. We'll also send out the recording of the session. And yeah, just a big thank you to you, Des. I think that was very helpful. I do realize that having a large group is actually quite tricky. And I think that we might look at a follow-up session at some point where we have small groups so that we can do some more practical stuff. But I think we did cover some practical stuff as well. So thank you very much to you. Thank you to all our members who attended, and other people that were also interested, such as Michael. So great. We will send you all the material. Take care, everybody, and have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.